they had a long history, as you're aware. And I feel that we've kind of, from our standpoint, not done justice to them as far as, it seems like some of the reviews and the approvals and what have you haven't been followed through with on both sides, on their side and on our side. So I did have a long meeting with them yesterday. They did bring me a large packet of everything that they have done, which seems to be very complete. Now, that isn't what I necessarily had to review at first. Some of the staff has reviewed that, some hasn't. We've had some staff turnover in that same time. So there's a lot of issues there that I assured them that we would review that next meeting, their full packet, and give them the opportunity to be here. So anyway, they're kind of a long story, but I just wanted you to be aware that, you know, it was something that I pulled off because I wasn't comfortable with what they had in place. And then now that I see the packet that they had, they probably could have gone forward if I would have had all of that information at one time. So we're going to try to refine our process. The developers and engineering consultants like the idea of a checklist program to where they come in, meet with us, check off who they need to get comments from, what they need to get, bring it back in a bundle, and at the time that they apply, we'd be very strict with our deadlines and carry them forward rather than try to have a deadline and then piece it together after the fact. So that's kind of what's been happening. So just wanted to use this one as an example of, there's a few more out there that are like that that we've been working on. But anyway, just wanted to let you know that they appear to be very complete at this point, and we will have them next month.
Thank you, Mr. Hadley.
Yep, thank you.
So our first item we're going to act on today is a standard motion for the minutes dated June 17th, 2015. Is there a motion to approve those? A motion by Mr. Ballesteros. Is there a second? Second. Ms. Kovash. Any discussion, correction, or addition to those minutes? Being none, all those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried, minutes approved. First item on today's agenda, well, we're going to welcome another consultant, and hopefully she's going to be here for a long time, Miss Jennifer Goss. She is working with Christina Wenko, and Christina thinks she'll be here for another meeting or two, and then she's going to leave us. We're kind of getting used to that. But we welcome Jennifer. We had another member that has been appointed to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and he is not here today, but I think he'll be here next month, so we expect Mr. Scott Bullinger to be here next month. So we hope to see him on board next month. So our first order of business on the regular agenda is a special use permit. It's to consider a request for a special use permit for the storage of hazardous materials. The site is located at 60 40th Street West. The site is zoned general industrial and is approximately 11.2 acres. This time I'd ask the party presenting, please feel free to come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Randy Wall. I'm with KLJ Engineering, 1463 I-94 Business Loop East, Dickinson. This morning before you is a special use permit for the Nalco facility, which has been in operation now for quite a while. This is just kind of wrapping up the straightening out and the expansion of the project in regard to zoning. And at this time, I'd like to thank Mr. Josephson for and Mr. Millstone for working with us on this project. It's always a pleasure to work with the city, especially with Mr. Josephson. We are in full agreement with the staff report this morning. We have no questions or comments, and would ask you to approve this application this morning, and I would be happy to answer any questions at this time.
I only had one question. With the storage tanks that are proposed to be placed on the site, would they be put there over a series of time, or would it be like you're going to put 12 tanks there right away? You,
Um, I am not sure about that. I would say that my answer to that question would be is that they're going to be put there right away.
okay. And when these tanks, when they're done using them, say 30, 40, 50 years from now, is there something planned to remove them?
Yeah, well, NALCO operates under a long-established written safety program that's in accordance with all NEPA requirements and all OSHA requirements. So all of that type of installation and containment and decommissioning and all that, that's all done in accordance with their company programs and with the environmental requirements of OSHA and NEPA.
That's all I had. Any other questions or comments?
I have one, Mr. Chairman. I notice in here in the report that it states the City of Dickinson Sanitary Department has difficulty accessing and turning around on the Nalco property. Have they resolved that issue?
That is going to be part of the site plan design.
Okay.
And we've already had discussions with them. And if you note in the staff report, the fire department kind of has the same issues. Right. And we've met with the fire department, and I know that staff has discussed with the sanitary department. And so we fully anticipate, as part of the design for the site, that we're going to be doing a comprehensive circulation plan.
Okay. That's all I have.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Mr. Wall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
This time I'd ask if there's anyone in the public who would like to make comment on this special use permit application. Please feel free to come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Bob Sivak, Dickinson Fire Chief. We weren't opposed to the rezoning, and we are not opposed to the special use permit, but as a point of clarification, we would like it to state, or we'd like the company to realize, I guess, that this is not a blanket approval of the amount of storage. The amount of storage will be determined through a code analysis of their product, which we have not done yet. So we're not opposed to the special use permit again, but this should not be considered a blanket approval of the amount of product that needs to be stored. That's going to come later as we work with them.
Mr. Sivak, you've been through that process before where it's determined that they can only have so many tons or gallons,
You know,
whatever?
it is possible. That's why I bring this forward at this time. It's possible, even with an outside area, which is considered a control area, that the amount of product will be limited, depending on the product. So that's why I want to be clear, and then I want it to be clear through this process that this won't be a blanket approval for 120,000 gallons of 9 different products. That will come later. And it may be that it'll be just fine. We don't know that yet. So that's just a point of clarification.
When you do the analysis, if it comes up that this site could hold, say, 200,000 gallons, is that part of it, or are you just looking at what they've applied for or what they intend to do?
We'll just look at what they've applied for, which we haven't had a chance to review. So, again, the tank farm as presented may be just fine. We don't know yet. But we don't want action taken this morning to be construed later or misconstrued later that we received permission for this amount. And again, I'd like to stress it may be just fine, but we haven't got to that point yet. So this should not be considered blanket approval for the quantity. And as far as the question that was asked about tanks, in addition to the company's rules, the adopted city fire code, the International Fire Code, also addresses abandoned tanks and storage and decommissioning of the tanks. So not only on the company end of things is that covered, but also on the city end of things through the adopted codes, there's resources.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens.
Thank you.
If there's anyone else who'd like to make comment, please feel free to come forward. Mr. Wall? Oh, yes, sure. Mr. Wall?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I want to say that we work in partnership with the fire department on every project that we do, especially something such as this. Condition of approval number 5, it says, as part of the development process, the applicant shall coordinate with law enforcement and emergency responders, including the Dickinson Fire Department and the Stark County Emergency Management Director, to facilitate public safety. I just wanted to say that we fully concur with Chief Sivak on his comments. That's always been our understanding, that we will work in collaboration with the fire department on such a project that could have, you know, health and safety issues. So we're in full agreement with what the chief said.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate your comment. If there's anyone else who'd like to make comment, please feel free to come to the podium. Anyone from the commission wish to make further comment? This time I'd ask Mr. Josephson if he would give us his recommendation from the city.
Good morning, Planning and Zoning Commissioners. Steve Josephson, City County Planner. And this was a request to, store, for a special use permit to store hazardous materials at this site. It's zoned general industrial. There's been a storage going on at this property. They just want to expand what they're, what they're doing. Staff is proposing 7 conditions that would need to be met in order to, as part of the special use permit. Their capacity is going to be limited to 120,000 gallons. To maximum capacity, they were proposing 10 tanks, and they're also going to be limited to the site plan as you see it before you. And also the hazardous materials, they'll be limited to the ones that they listed in their application. And as the applicant's representative pointed out, they will be required to work with emergency responders on this. And one thing that we pointed out too, both prior to the meeting and in the staff report, is this is an entitlement. They're still going to need to meet whatever requirements are out there, both the cities, any other state, federal regulations, and we concur with it. I'm glad that Chief Sivak added his comments. So in some ways, this is the easier part of the process. It's the development process that's going to be, that's where you start getting down to your brass tacks, and your rubber hits the road at that point. So staff recommends approval subject to those 7 conditions. Also, if sometime in the future, if the applicant wishes to expand, they're going to need to come back for a special use permit, which will have a public hearing process. And I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Josephson. Anyone have any questions or comments for Mr. Josephson? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This time I'll close the public portion of this hearing, and I would ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Elkin.
I move the Dickinson Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the Nalco special use permit petition subject to the conditions listed, as meeting all the requirements of the Dickinson Municipal Code and being in the interest of the public health, safety, and welfare.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
And a second. Jackson? Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Recommend approval of the special use permit. Thank you very much. Item 2 on our regular agenda is a Renaissance Zone applications to consider a request for a Renaissance Zone project at 43 Sims Street. At this time, I'd ask the party presenting, please feel free to come forward.
Well, Chairman Abramson, Commissioners, thank you for seeing us. I'm Bernie Marsh with the Esquire Club downtown. This is Lori Willett with Skull Construction to answer the questions that I don't know the answers to. We're planning on doing a resurfacing of the, okay, you can take that up there. Resurfacing of the building, windows. This is a rock exterior that we're gonna be putting on there. I don't know what else I can tell you unless you ask me a question.
No, I mean, I think it looks really good, good plan. I just have one question on the wording, to make sure that down the road someone doesn't give you a problem. Do we have a technical term defined as a cocktail lounge? Because in here it says the project consists of, and will continue to be used as a cocktail lounge. Is that limiting in any way his use?
Steve Josephson, city county planner, that's actually the term out of the zoning code to describe establishments such as Mr. Marsh's it's called a cocktail lounge.
Okay,
So it apply to any bar, any establishment where where the sole purpose of it, or the primary purpose is to go in there and have a drink.
okay, good. Just want to make sure we didn't limit him in any way.
But in the future, I guess, if we would leave that business and somebody wanted the building for something else, I'm sure it could still be used for that.
Sure. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Marsh?
I have none, other than it really looks good, Bernie. I
Thank you.
like it.
Yep.
Well, there's, downtown, there's more things going on downtown and new interest, and we just want to bring more excitement to downtown. I always thought we were the heart of the city, so.
And I was just gonna ask, I think the project looks great, but are you aware of any of your neighbors that are contemplating similar projects?
I visited with a few of them, and, some of them seem really excited, but they only got 25 feet to work with it, and I've got like 190 feet to work with. But, yeah, there is more interest. I think once we get the ball rolling, there's gonna be more people jumping on board with this.
Yeah, it'll be a good improvement.
You gonna put a restaurant in the basement again?
No. I don't think I could meet the handicap requirements anymore.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Marsh?
Mr. Chairman, I have one thing to add, it's not
Yeah.
necessarily on this application, but Steve has been working with the state coordinator for this program, and we are going to have a public education, not only for our boards, but the public and the downtown community, to try to help facilitate more of these applications to come in. That probably will be in October. So we'll
Thank
keep you aware of that, and we're trying to promote that as well, and hopefully these folks can spread the word down there too, and we can get more of these applications going down there.
And,
Thank
yeah,
you very much.
Steve's been a lot of help to us. Walter's been help to us, and it's been good working with him.
And as Skull Construction, I'm gonna reach out after this meeting when the state comes, and we're going to, as part of the Skull Construction and the Downtown Association that I'm on, try to bring in homeowners and landowners and business, leasees, and have a meeting also to show them the processes, to kind of get that fear away from there's so much paperwork and how do you do all of this, and hopefully start to spearhead some of these renovations and answer some of the questions and show them that it isn't as painful as it seems to be. Because there's been 3 or 4 businesses that have done renovations that haven't taken the steps to get this done because they don't know how it all works. So I think we're gonna have a really good plan in place by building season 2016 and see some new things happening.
Thank you. Mr. Marsh, did you feel the process was okay?
It's somewhat intimidating because you're working with basically 3 different entities, and, paperwork. But once you really get into the paperwork, it's just understanding the timelines that are involved in the process. And, the city's timeline, the planning and zoning timeline and everything. And so you really need to start on this much sooner than we did, because we sort of had to end up waiting a couple weeks with our construction date, so that we could follow all the guidelines. And you can't do any demolition, you can't do anything until it's all approved. And so people that are planning on it, and the paperwork really is not that intense. Like I said, it's just intimidating because you're working with so many different groups to get it going, with the state Renaissance and with the city, and then, city commission and you, and you're just working in a circle that common person probably doesn't understand.
Yeah, thank you very much. Any other comments, questions?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This time I'd ask if there's anyone in the public who'd like to make comment on this Renaissance Zone application, please feel free to come forward. Anyone from the commission wish to make further comment? I'd ask at this time then, Mr. Josephson, our AICP city and county planner, to make his recommendation.
Thank you, Steve Josephson, City County Planner, and this is a request for a Renaissance Zone project. Just to let you know, this is the second one that you'll be hearing this year. The first one was at the Ivanhoe, the Ivanhoe for the renovation here. And this is a case where the project is going to exceed 50% of the true value of the building. It meets the requirements in the city's Renaissance Zone, zone project. We've had discussions with Ricky Rarick, the state coordinator, about this, who issued a conditional use which allows the applicant to go forward and do some very basic demolition work before approval of this. So staff recommends approval of this project. As Mr. Hadley said, we are one of the things he didn't mention that we'll add to this is we're going to look at revising our Renaissance Zone plan. The state recently changed the Renaissance Zone program so that more lots can be added into it. That's going to be a whole public process. We're looking at getting the Renaissance Zone coordinator to come over here and hold a workshop or some sort of meeting in front, that would be for the public and the Planning and Zoning Commission to talk about the Renaissance program and the expansion of it, and then, have something available for property owners, lessees, anyone who's interested in the process too on that same day. That's what we're looking at doing in the future, so we'll keep you posted. We'll keep you posted on that. Some of the restrictions in here, one has to realize it's a state program, and that's where some of these restrictions, especially about getting the approvals before construction can begin, it's all part of the state program. They have to go through their approvals and so on before they'll let people swing and, swing a hammer or do any of that, do that work. So we just need to comply with what's in the state, what's in the state program. And our process is pretty much designed for contractors to use if you look at the form. So, sometimes it's just a matter of getting the word out, that to more people this program is available. There have been a number of Renaissance Zone projects that have been done since the city joined the program back in 2004. And that's all that we're going to look at as we update the plan, is which blocks have been completed and which blocks are going to be good candidates to add to the zone. I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Josephson? Any comments?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Josephson. This time we'll close the public portion of this hearing, and I'd ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Elkin?
I move the City of Dickinson Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of Bernie Marsh's petition for a Renaissance Zone tax exemption as being compliant with City of Dickinson's Renaissance Zone plan as amended in July of 2012, and the City of Dickinson's comprehensive plan as being in the interest of public health, safety, and welfare.
Is there a second to that motion? Mr. Friedrich, second. Any discussion? Any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Recommend approval. Thank you very much. Anyone else have anything they'd like to bring before the commission this time? Being none, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn. A motion by Mr. Friedrich. Is there a second? Mr. Elkin? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Meeting adjourned.